Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ian Struker, a real estate agent with the Remax Golfing team in Hamilton, Ontario. And today we're diving into a fascinating chapter of Canadian history. Don Mills, often called Canada's model suburb. This story takes us back to post-World War II era when Canada was grappling with a massive housing shortage and booming families, and there was a major shift towards suburban living that would eventually redefine our cities and economy. If you're into history, economics, or just curious about why so many Canadians live in suburbs today, stick around. After World War II, Canada faced a perfect storm for suburban growth. To start, 1 million veterans were returning home to a country of just 11 million people, beginning a major housing crisis. On top of this, young couples were starting families. The baby boom was in full swing. And urban centers like Toronto were bursting at the seams. Farms were struggling economically, leading to rural depopulation, which opened up land for development. Enter Don Mills, a rural farming community northeast of Toronto that transformed into a groundbreaking suburb starting in 1953. The man behind it was E.P. Taylor, a prominent businessman who acquired over 800 hectares of farmland through his company, Don Mills Development Ltd. This wasn't just accidental growth. Don Mills was meticulously planned as Canada's first fully private sector new town, inspired by the Garden City movement from the 1920s and modernist architecture. The master plan, designed by urban planner Macklin Hancock, divided the areas into 4 residential quadrants centered around a common central and civic hub. These neighborhoods were isolated from things like heavy traffic by putting in looping roads, cul-de-sacs, and generous green spaces, retaining existing trees wherever possible. Light industry was pushed to the edges, and the whole setup included schools, recreation facilities, and one of Canada's earliest suburb shopping plazas. Economically, this was all new and it was a bold move. Taylor convinced local rural councils of the benefit: job creation from construction industry, population growth to boost tax revenues, and a self-contained community that could sustain itself. By 1965, Don Mills housed 28,000 residents and over 70 industries, all funded privately but aligned with broader government pushes for suburban expansion. The federal government, through the newly formed Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or CMHC, in 1946 played a key role here, even if indirectly for Don Mills. CMHC ensured long-term, low-interest mortgages, 25 years of affordable rates, to make homeownership accessible, first for veterans and then for middle-class families. This was a game changer from the pre-war era, where short-term loans had led to widespread foreclosures during the Depression. Now, let's talk real estate specifics, the home designs and pricing in Don Mills. These weren't cookie cutter in the boring sense. They were modernist properties tailored for the nuclear family. Architects like Henry Fleece designed many of the originals. Think bungalow, split levels, and semi-detached houses with clean lines, ample yards, and lawns. Developers used a handful of standard floor plans to keep costs down, typically featuring 2 or 3 bedrooms, basement rec rooms for the kids, and kitchens that prioritize functionality over size. The emphasis was on private family spaces, reflecting the post-war ideal of domestic stability and affluence. Exterior materials, colors, and building positions were carefully controlled to create a cohesive look. Price was all about affordability for the emerging middle class. In the mid-1950s, homes in Don Mills started around $13,000 to $20,000. Modest by today's terms, but a stretch for many back then. Made possible by those CMHC-backed mortgages, requiring a small down payment. Marketing focused on price and space, targeting young families with newspaper ads highlighting low monthly payments. Land costs were minimized by skimping on initial infrastructure like sewers. Septic tanks were common at first, allowing developers to offer more house for the money. This approach made Don Mills a magnet for first-time buyers, setting a template for value-driven suburban real estate. But Don Mills wasn't just a local success. It became a blueprint that reshaped Canada's entire real estate economy. Suburbs like this exploded across the country in the 1950s and 60s, turning Canada into a suburban nation. Government policies were the engine. CMHC not only financed homes, but also pushed modernist neighborhood designs, crescents, school-centered layouts, and zoning for single-family dwellings. Infrastructure like freeways and rapid transit followed, connecting suburbs to urban jobs. Economically, this boom propped up post-war growth through massive construction spending, creating jobs in building, manufacturing, and related industries. Homeownership rates soared, fueling consumer spending on cars, appliances, and furnishings. Over time, though, suburbs have had a profound effect on our real estate market. They locked in low density sprawl, making cities car dependent and resistant to densification. This led to escalating home prices as demand outstripped supply in desirable areas. Post war houses that sold for $15,000 now fetch millions in places like Toronto. Real estate became a cornerstone of Canada's economy, but it also created challenges, affordability crises, environmental strain from commuting, and social segregation based on income and family status rather than other factors. Today, as we rethink urban planning with calls for more walkable, mixed-use communities, Don Mills reminds us how one suburb's innovative planning rippled out to define generations of Canadian living. If you're in the market or just love these stories, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. What's your take on suburban life? Has it shaped your real estate journey? Thanks for watching. I'm Ian Struker, and I'll see you on the next one.